should be good. I usually wait till someone gets in here before I say what's up.
Yeah, we're.
Yeah.
Let's see. Gotta make sure I can still.
Do you want to share anything, or you got anything to share, or not?
Probably not.
Okay.
I can just. I mean, I just updated stuff, so.
Yeah, Kev slacking.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got some. I mean, I've got updated numbers. As close as we're gonna get, so I could just reference them or whatever.
Yeah, I reference what you got. To be honest, I don't even have any sheets up right now. This isn't good. I didn't realize my sheets weren't up.
Yeah. Check that sheet I shared with you. I just those aren't up to the minute updated, but
yeah, I'll pull up I got my optimizer pulled up. I'll just let you talk about the sheets. But we're live, guys. What up? Welcome in. I do want to start off with one thing. That would be the weather. I think we got a pretty good day. 4 of you guys in here. I want to give a quick shout out though to RG. They do offer the weather for free, guys, through FanDuel, my arch nemesis. But just kidding. They do have the weather for free, guys, on the forecast. So if you guys want to check that out, you can always go over to Roto Grinders and just see the weather report for free. I got it pulled up over here. It's showing some good game weather, blowing out, decently warm winds. Detroit game, blowing out in the Mets game. Boston looks good with winds out. The Colorado game's got great 90-degree and winds out past center at 10 miles an hour. So there's that. We got Goldie here with us today. He's feeling a little bit better. He might have had the Rona. We don't know.
But no, we're all good. We're all good.
Oh, you don't have the Rona, so we're good.
No,
we're good.
Yeah, we tested negative. We're all good. But yeah, I think we're on the back end of the cold here. So sorry if I sound a bit congested here, everybody. But yeah, it hit me pretty hard. But I think we're good. And yeah, stoked to get into the slate. I think we got some interesting decision points today. A lot of kind of sneaky spots. Some obvious spots too. But and I think some good spots where we can get different. We'll get to the Oakland game, for example. I think Montas going to be pretty chalk. I mean, I'm showing he'll be pushing 30-35% today. So, I think that's a spot you can get different. Frankie, he generally, he's got some upside, but KC's not bad, right? So, I think pivoting off some chalk arms today is could do well on some of these sneaky spots, or in some of these sneaky games, right? Because we're going to get some offenses, some really high-powered offenses that probably are going to be hard to get to, and they might be pretty ignored, right? So, like the Dodgers, for example, showing some pretty low ownership on them. Really good spot against Plesac. Let's see. And same thing with the Twins. Normally we see a ton of ownership head to basically anybody that gets Bumgarner, right? But today it's a little bit depressed, so that could be a good spot as well. So I think getting to some of those spots and then mixing in some chalk arms if you want to do that, I think that's a fine build today. But if you want to pivot on the mound, and then just stack up Coors or something, that's also an option as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good little overview. What you got going on, Goldie. I like that. Let's start back off at pitching. I know you mentioned it a little bit. I'm still pulling up a few. I'm slacking today on getting everything up and running here for some reason because I have 40 screens. But yeah, you gave a really good rundown, I think, of that. We're going to get into some more plays, guys. Ask any questions you guys want. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I got the SaberSim optimizer here. We got Montas, as Goldie talked about, as our top play. He's going to get some ownership. It looks like 34%. I do want to ask him it does look spread out elsewhere, anywhere from 12 to 21%. Do you think the 34% ownership on Montas Goldie is enough to get away with him? Or you want to get away? You said fade the chalky pitchers, but do you think 34% is going to be too much ownership, or do you think you should own him more? What do you think on Montas?
I personally wouldn't come in over 30% on Montas today. I would try to deliberately get in under the field, even though it's a fine spot. Frankie's a good arm, right? Casey is just a little sticky for me, right? And at 35% on a full slate, I think there's plenty of other top end arms that you can get to, that are going to have far less ownership, right? With similar projections, similar values to Frankie. For example, Framber just above him at 8,500. He's going to come in. I mean, I'm showing about 20% on him right now, and the matchup is a little bit worse, admittedly, and his strikeout numbers certainly aren't as strong as Frankie's, right? But you can get to similar builds and save yourself 10 to 15% in ownership just by a short little pivot right there, right? And obviously you go up another couple $100 and you've got Robbie Ray, right? So those two are going to be carrying the most, and they're good spots for sure, but all the other guys you can get to Skubal for sure, right? He's got really great K stuff and a good matchup today. You can play Cookie Carrasco against Miami. Again, you're less stoked about that, but there are some pivots that I think I'd prefer to get to instead of just eating 40% or whatever it is on Montas. Admittedly it's an okay spot, but it's not the best, so that's kind of where I stand there. I think getting to so that, like, you can play a Pablo Lopez tonight, right? Even though he gets the Mets, Pablo's a good arm. He's got a killer changeup, and I think that's a fine spot. He's overpriced, but nobody's going to have him. He'll be under 5% owned, and these are top end arms, right? You can get to Carlos Rodon, right? And get a bit of a discount in ownership for a similar projection, right? So, and same thing with Kershaw, I would personally probably lay off Kershaw a little bit, especially at 10.5, coming off an arm, but like, these guys are playable for sure. So personally, I'd come in under on Montas. I think he's a little trappy. The price feels a little trappy to me. And certainly, like I said, on 12 game slates, you don't have to eat it unless it's like a Garrett Cole against the Tigers type of spot. You know what I mean? So, like, you could play a Jordan Montgomery if you want to get really wild against Toronto. I mean, it's one of the close your eyes type of spots, right? But you can pivot off of Frankie and still get some value. So that's kind of where I stand SP1 wise. Like, SP2, I think we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here today. I think best spots are probably going to be like Lorenzen, right? Even though he doesn't strike anybody out whatsoever, you're just kind of playing him and hope he doesn't get beat up. John Gray, I think it's a perfectly gettable spot, and he's only going to be about 10 to 15% or something like that. So what I think I'd prefer to do is maybe eat some more ownership on a less expensive guy, like a John Gray. And then perhaps pivot up top and get to a Skubal. You could double dip in the same game there, play Skubal and John Gray, or something like a Rodon John Gray or something like that, right?
Yeah, I really like that Rodon Gray. I talked about that, guys, on my article today. If you haven't checked that out, check that out. I post our pitchers and stacks every day, guys. I talked a little bit about how to pair them together. We have a lot of the 8K options that Goldie's talking about. We have the spend up options, and you can also pair down with Gray, 6,900, and another guy. What's your thoughts on Lynch? I don't think you mentioned him at 6,300 against Oakland. He's getting a decent projection, a little bit better than Gray actually for 6,300. What's your
Yeah,
thoughts
yeah.
on him?
I think he's playable. It scares me a little bit because Oakland is kind of sticky. They're not great, right? They don't have a lot of power, and they're not going to beat you up too often. But they're kind of pesky, right, to get through. And in
Fair pass.
Oakland, they've got a lot of foul ground there. So with guys that will suppress some hard contact, get some pop ups, that kind of stuff. Doing it in Oakland, unfortunately, it kind of suppresses their strikeout rate and their strikeout upside a little bit sometimes. So, but I'm with you. I think he's perfectly playable as an SP2, and he's not going to be all that popular. So, I think that's a pretty valid build. Just going kind of standard, right? SP1, SP2, cheap SP2 that is, and then try and go get some of these offenses that are in really good spots. We've got the Boston game, right? There should probably be some runs scored there. I mentioned the Dodgers earlier. Those kinds of spots, and obviously we have Coors too. So yeah, I think that's probably the standard build. Just standard SP1, SP2, and then try and go get some relatively inexpensive but value heavy teams. Maybe like the Cardinals you could do if you want to play some chalk pitchers or something. They're not going to be all that popular. Spots like that. I think I like the Giants a lot as well. In addition to Rodon, you could we can run a full 5 stack of the Giants against Thompson and throw Rodon on top of that, right? And that gets you some correlation, and that's a really, really good spot for them, and they're probably not going to be all that owned. So I think today you're going to run into, obviously we got the Coors game, right? And it's going to be pretty hard to fade, but eating 25 to 30% on a single team, even if it's a Coors game on a full 12 game slate, it starts to get a little tough. So I think I would prefer to, pivot off of some of the top chalk, fade some Toronto, fade Boston even, and perhaps you could get to a Houston. Giolito has been getting kind of bludgeoned this season. He's given up a ton of barrels, a lot of hard contact, a lot of fly balls. So Houston is in a really sneaky spot here tonight as well. So you can pivot off of some of these super expensive teams like the Padres that are, probably going to put up a good 6 runs on average, and then get to some very high upside offenses as well, like the Houstons and the San Franciscos and the Dodgers, right?
Yeah, I mentioned that a little bit in my article today, like the Dodgers low on Houston, Toronto. We got some of these high-powered bats, like home run hitters that we like to target. The Padres are in a great spot. I'm going to have a tough time fading them. I think they've been a very hot team. They're in Colorado. The weather's really good. I definitely like the Houston idea. I'm seeing them pop a little bit more on the stacks page. I don't mind some one-offs even in that game. Maybe like you said, Jordan hits a couple homers or something, or you get the guy right as a one-off maybe. We do have a question, Yankees or St. Louis Love on FanDuel. They're the second and third top rated team in my stacks page. So I got their lineup up here right now. They're getting a little bit ownership on Judge, but everybody else seems to be in check on the Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Yankees are obviously in a killer spot as well, and they adjusted things a little bit today, moving DJ down to the 5 or the 6, and leading Judge off tonight. So whenever you see something like that, or whenever I see
Judge not in?
no, he's leading off.
Leading off. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah.
they shoved DJ. He's been struggling a little bit. The beginning of the year he kind of had a wrist issue, so some guys just take a little bit longer to come back from those things. But they put Donaldson up in the 2 hole because Stripling has historically been a kind of a reverse splitsy guy. He gives up a bunch more hard contact, more fly balls, and more power to the right side of the plate, right? So it is a good spot for the Yankees today for sure. And they're another one of these high-powered offenses that have just been tearing the cover off the ball that you can definitely get to.
Okay, yeah, guys, you're getting some good information from Goldie here, guys, on these contacts. So he likes Houston, he likes the Dodgers, he likes the Yankees. That should answer your question. I got to build a lineup on FanDuel tonight. I'm going to build a lineup on DraftKings. I think it's definitely going to include some Yanks. I think it's definitely going to include. I'm looking at the Padres. Obviously, I think the Padres are going to be tough to fade tonight.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And historically,
Really?
Kyle
Sorry.
Freeland, Kyle Freeland, he historically hasn't given up a ton of power, but he had to get sent down a couple seasons ago to really figure some things out, and I don't really think he figured all that much out, to be quite honest. When he came back up, he's been giving up a ton more fly balls. He used to be, really, really heavy ground baller that didn't get beat up a ton, but he's been giving up a lot of power ever since he came back up. So you're right. They are going to be tough to fade. I would, if you're going to play the Padres, try and get to the bottom half of the lineup. It has been very hot in Colorado over the last week, and yeah, the Padres, whenever they come into Coors, they, even if they've been cold for a little while, Coors solves a lot of problems for a lot of hitters, right? Just psychologically, guys are like, hell yeah, we're about to see the ball fly. So it is going to be tough to fade them. So if you're getting to the Padres tonight, try and get to the bottom half of the lineup, mix in like a Jose Azocar or something like that. You can wrap around with a Sergio Alcantara from the bottom for sure, but play some lefties as well. Kyle Freeland is unlikely to be very long for the game to begin with, right? So you can get to, obviously an Alfaro behind the plate. He's going to be very popular, but there's so many good shortstop plays in general on a daily basis that you can kind of pivot to a Ha-Seong Kim, who's got incredible contact skills coming over from the KBO. So you can get to some lefties. Play a Cronenworth at 5,600.
Yeah, I love Cronenworth, and I love Grisham too. Another one. Sorry.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. So play some of these lefties. You'll be able to get some lower ownership on them. Play a wraparound if you're going to full stack or whatever. But on the mound, I would kind of avoid Gore here. The Rockies are also similar to Oakland. They're not very good, but they're sticky and they don't strike out a lot. So with the weather as warm as it is, I would stay away from trying to punt Mackenzie Gore today. But the offense itself is going to be pretty hard to get to, or hard to get away from, rather, just because they're so cheap overall.
And
so
Gore probably would have been real chalky if he wasn't in Coors in this game.
for sure. And right now, like, nobody's gonna play him. So the kid had absolutely, like, literally nobody's gonna play him. So he does have the upside.
Serious
Projection,
upside,
projections and everything really don't like him today, and obviously for good reason. He's a little expensive, and the upside for him probably, in this spot in general, just isn't going to be there. So, but I mean, if you're running a ton of teams, get some exposure to him, because there's definitely a higher chance than his ownership is reflecting that he can put up 20. He doesn't have to blow the doors off here and go lights out for 30, 35 or whatever. 20, 25 is probably going to be fine tonight, because you've got so many other offenses in really, really good spots. This heat wave that we've kind of been experiencing across the country over the last week. Ball's going to be flying here now that we're in the middle of the summer, right? So, that's kind of where I am with the Padres. I mean, single entry, 3 max. Personally, I would just fade it, maybe get a piece here or there. Or if I'm going to full stack it, or even three stack it, or I would try and really get different elsewhere to ensure that I'm not going to be competing with too many guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm really torn today on the pitching, probably mostly. I think I'm just gonna kind of go with what fits. If it's the pay cheap option, or it's the mid 8K guys. I think the mid 8K guys are gonna be the chalkiest and higher dollar at least. Um, well,
Yeah, for sure.
it's getting towards 6:30 Goldie. I know we talked about kind of a lot of things. Do you have any quick takes on off the board large field stacks? Maybe I'm running a single entry build here for GPP on FanDuel right now. I'm going to run a single entry build on DK and show you guys what SaberSim's kicking out for us tonight on the build. And we'll get Goldie's takes here quick on what he thinks some large field stacks are going to look like tonight.
Yeah, man. I think I really do like Houston. I love Giolito in general, and he's torn them up on occasion. When he's seen him in the past. So this is by all means, a large field tournament play. Getting to them in a single entry, it really just depends on your risk profile. But I think there are other similarly priced spots that you should probably be getting to more often, like a Boston, like a Twins, like the Cardinals, for example, in single entry and three max. But in large field stuff, man, I think Houston is really really sneaky. Giolito, like I said, he's been given he's normally a fly ball pitcher, but he's been given up a ton of barrels this year. He actually leads the slate in barrel rate this season at 12.5%, and that is a really really big number. So the reason I like Houston so much, not just because of that, but the strikeout rate that Giolito brings to the table, that also leads the slate. But Houston is Houston, right? And they're super sticky at the plate, and they're very patient at the plate. So if something is wrong with Giolito, if he's just off, even a little bit, he's been walking a ton of guys as well. I think Houston's got insane upside here, and not just to kind of get to Giolito early and get to the bullpen. I think they could put up a really big number, and nobody's going to have them. So I think that's a really really interesting spot. But I mean, if I had to pick a single entry team, it's got to be the Dodgers. I think they're just like the Dodgers and the Twins or something like that. Like they're all going to be under 10%, and I think that's perfectly gettable. They're all expensive, so that makes them even harder to get to, especially since most of the arms you're going to want to get to today are on the more expensive end as well. So yeah, in single entries, I think I'd probably focus on the more obvious spots, like the Twins, like the Dodgers, Cardinals, and Boston. These are good spots as well. I'd probably stay off of Toronto, even though they've got a pretty good matchup. J Money, like, he just doesn't get beat up all that often, and he suppresses contact. So, and of course we can, like we were talking about earlier, get into the Giants. The Giants, they've got a lot of upside in this spot too. As soon as when you get them outside of San Francisco, especially in warm weather, these guys can really really explode. This is a good baseball team over here. So what I think we're seeing is most of the ownership is just going to filter to like the Phillies. Washington's going to get some, and of course Coors, right? The Padres. So those are probably the ones I would avoid in single entry and three max, and I'd try to get to these other really really high upside offenses that are just going to be totally unowned.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We had a Ray or Gray on FanDuel question. I answered it with Ray projects better. I mean, Gray's a little bit priced up on FanDuel. I actually like Lynch on FanDuel the most at 7,300 because I want to get some bats in tonight. But I mean, it's a real risky play, guys. It's a high end risk play. I ran some builds on FanDuel. It's really liking Montaz at the top for pitcher. It likes game stacking the Padres in Colorado even because Colorado's probably going to be lower owned, and then you get the San Diego chalk. It also had a couple lineups with Giants and Padres, which in Twins, which Goldie's both mentioned at lower owned stacks. Bell coming 11%, Yaz, I mean, some of these guys are 5%, 4%. You know, Bell, Miranda, Buxton. You know, they're going to be lower owned guys. Maybe Buxton
I
not so much.
You just mentioned it, but I love Jose Miranda in this spot. Like he's
Yeah,
cheap.
2,200
It's a
on
really
FanDuel.
good spot for him. Yeah.
And on DraftKings, we're getting some lineups like Colorado, Padres, Washington, even a couple of those guys like Cruz and Thomas again playing them back to back today, 5%, 4% to add into your guys' stack. That's all you really need in single entry. These are single entry build lineups, guys, that I'm looking at. Getting just a little bit different. Montaz and Valdez is a pitching combo. I actually built a lineup with Padres and Josh Donaldson, Stanton, and Judge, 5 Padres and 3 Yanks. That does leave out Machado. I don't know. What's your feelings on if I left out Machado on a
Yeah,
DK
I
stack?
mean, yeah, no, I think that's perfectly fine. You know, there are plenty of other. You're not sacrificing all that much if you're leaving out Machado. He's obviously going to be the highest projected, and you know, kind of a tough fade here this evening. If you're maxing, definitely don't full fade the guy, right? But I think leaving him out of your stacks in single and three max, I think that's perfectly viable. And then getting to something like play like a Gio Urshela in the Twins, or get to an Arenado or something like that. At third base, I think that's perfectly viable.
Yeah, those guys are popping up a little bit in that twin stack. That one guy you just mentioned, I can't even say his name.
Miranda or
No,
Urshela.
Urshela. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean this is a really sneaky spot. I mean, it's not really all that sneaky, right? Because we started off with, we typically are looking for every opportunity to stack against Bum anymore. He just doesn't have it. He's not throwing it by anybody. Even the left side of the plate, he's starting to get beat up a little bit. So, and he's a tilt box on the mound, right? He starts getting squeezed, and he could very well just get thrown out in the second inning, and then you got a bullpen game, right? So,
Yeah, the
um,
Twins have a real nice total. So,
yeah, it's a good
um,
spot, really good spot for him.
and a lot of guys are low owned, single digits, guys. All right, Goldie. I know we're running. I got to build 2 lineups yet at least. I'm gonna get like about 30 minutes. It looks like to do it. So, any last minute questions, guys? Get them in now. We got. Oh wait, we got one. I had to build leaving Machado out as well. It seems like you can get 3 nice Yankees. Those right hand Stanton, Judge, and Donaldson with 5 Padres and Frankie and Valdez. It seems like a legit stack to me. It does look better with Machado in it and Stanton and Judge, and then playing like a cheap second baseman there. But I really like Cronenworth. Ooh, I can get O'Neill in and
Yeah,
Cronenworth
Tyler.
back.
Yeah, sneaky spot for O'Neill as well.
He's getting a little chalk though.
Yeah, let's see. Uh,
I
let's
want to
see
play
where
Machado
I've
if
got
I'm gonna
O'Neill coming in. Yeah, about 10% or so. So yeah, you might see that ownership inflate a little bit in single entries, right? The really clear values in good spots tend to pop a bit more in the single and the three max. But you can, if you're getting to the Cardinals, don't leave out like a Harrison Bader, right? He's got plenty of power, ton of speed. He's got a lot of upside at 2,500. So same thing with Donovan, right? He's in the 2 hole tonight, I believe. So also a really sneaky spot. They're only going to be about 8 to 10% as well, and a pretty good pretty good spot. Getting Boston and the monster tonight. And the Cardinals, they've been probably the hottest team in baseball over the last 2 weeks. So, um, yeah, I really like them as well.
What do you think of this? Donovan, Stanton, and Judge in the outfield, 5 Padres from catcher to shortstop, John Gray and Lynch pitcher,
I'll tell
50K
you what,
salary to use.
I just built a list as well, and I've got Gray and Lynch in there. So, I
I
think,
tell you, I'm always on these cheap pitchers.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I've
yeah,
been on
I
them all
agree with
year.
you.
I at least play one a night. I got one he's spend up or double, spend up in a punt or a double punt. I've done. We had success early in the season. What was that one night? The guy went off for 35. And he was like 6K. One guy was
Yeah,
5K. So
yeah,
we've had
exactly,
good
right.
luck with these guys. I think so.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly playable, especially tonight when the upper tier, right, are kind of in some sticky spots themselves, right? You don't want to play a Gore. You're not really stoked about playing a Carrasco or, um, even Tarek Skubal, right? It's kind of a shady spot a little bit. Feels a little bit trappy. So if you want to go completely off the board, fade some of the chalk. I don't trust Montas personally. I really don't like playing him. But then you got the middle tier. It's just they're in bad spots. Wainwright doesn't have any upside. Lorenzen doesn't strike anybody out. So it's hard to get to these guys. Really, if you want to fade a Rodon, because he's been kind of shaky the last several starts, you don't want to go up get some Giolito and Kershaw, because of injury, right? So I think it's perfectly viable to go double punt on the mound and just try and get some offense, because I do think tonight, on a larger slate, you're going to need
homers.
You're going to need a big score, I would guess tonight. So that's kind of where I'm leaning as well. And like I said, right when you mentioned it, I just finished building a list with Gray and Lynch on the mound. So
and that gets you different, especially if you want to stack the Padres. We're all worried like ownership's going to be heavy, but if you're playing guys that aren't like going to be owned that high, and you're double spending on 2 cheap pitchers that are low owned, like that makes your stack way different already.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you're going to grab a couple of these like Brent Donovan, Stanton, Judge. I don't think they're going to get that much love on DK as much as you think. There's single digits on a couple of these guys, at least Donovan that we just talked about, or O'Neill's getting a little bit more love at 3,600. But I just think it's good spots for some of these guys. Hope for big games. Donovan's been putting out good points for me when I play him. Lately, I've been having him as a one-off. He had 17 the other day. He's been scoring well. So, Smeltzer on DK at 6.5. I'm not going to get there, but, he's not the worst graded pitcher. He's kind of right in the middle of all these guys, but he's under the other 6K guys. That's all I want to say. I'm not on him, but I can see that he would be a way large field, get different type of play.
For sure. There's upside just because Arizona's so bad, but generally he doesn't have any upside whatsoever. He's got like a 17% strikeout rate or whatever it is, so it's going to be hard for him to really pop. But yeah, he's definitely in the mix because, Arizona's just not very good. And I know I ripped on Bum as well, but he can at 6,300. That's still a decent price for him. So, another very large field, minimal exposure type of guy. Nobody's going to have him, so you don't have to worry about any of that. But there's a couple of guys down here that you could feel okay punting, but you don't want to play Falter, you don't want to touch Stripling or Thompson, or Plesac. Absolutely not. So you're kind of pigeonholed down at the lower end to just like Gray and Lynch kind of guys. So I think you can get different on the mound by doing that, or just eating a little bit of ownership with like a Skubal or a Rodon up top, and then just get different with your stacks.
Yeah, I definitely like that. Well, Goldie, it's 6:40. We've had a long show.
Yeah, for sure.
We've been in and out of. We had a decent amount of people in here. Hit the like button if you haven't. I know we got to build our lineup still. I'm not building too many when I do a show. But yeah, guys, if you're not a true DFS member, check out our content. I post stacks and pitching that I like today, similar to what we talked about. I got the weather I usually comment on in the stacks. We also know that Roto Grinders is free for weather, so we can see it on here, just updates of the games. So yeah, check that out if you can. A big shout out to RG. It's helped me become a better player. I utilize some of their tools. I'm now utilizing some of SaberSim's, matching up ownership between it. We got Goldie that's running awesome projections, and soon should have 6 different sites aggregated into the True DFS projection plan. And that way we can get everybody and what they're doing all under our roof, and then we can figure out how to beat the field easier. Sheets' projection's been on fire. A lot of people have been winning. So if you haven't hit that like button for all that, hit the like button. Good show. Thank you guys in the comments. Appreciate everybody. Goldie, any last takes before I say the last thing?
Nah, that's it, man. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, everybody, and let's get it. And we're out.